Hello and welcome back to Joe's Art History Podcast, a podcast that celebrates all things art historical with me, your host and resident art historian, Joe McLaughlin. Welcome back and Happy New Year. It is episode 61 and we are kicking off the new year in style. What a treat I have for you today. I am interviewing the incredible Neil Eckersley, who is a double Olympian and contemporary artist. Now, Neil is a double Olympian in the sport of judo, but when he retired from the sport and he had a couple of quite major life events happen to him, he needed an outlet for his creativity and his thoughts, and he turned to art. He went back to art school, completed a degree, and he's actually gone on to become an Olympian artist in residence. Now, throughout this episode, Neil and I, of course, touch on what it was like to be an Olympic medalist, what it was like to train, to go to the Olympics, his thoughts, his feelings, and how that has now been channeled into his art. We have a wonderful conversation where we discuss what inspires him, and also we, of course, discuss the history of art at the Olympics, because, fun fact, right off the gate, everybody, art used to be an Olympic sport, and Neil and I will touch on that a little bit more in the episode. It's a great chat. Neil is salt of the earth. I'm thrilled to have met him, and this is a really special episode which I would like to dedicate to my dad, who was also a judo player in his time and actually a judo champion in his youth. So without further ado, I invite you to sit back, relax, as Neil and I discuss being an artist and an Olympian. So judo, what I can't not start this without asking you, how did you get into judo? And I'm so excited to talk to you about this, because it's a sport that's really close to my heart because of my dad, how we grew up. And
just basically because obviously I'm a dyslexic kid, and when I was at school, they didn't really have a diagnosis for it. They just classed as a naughty kid, well behaved and disruptive. And basically, in the summer holidays, my friend next door neighbour's mum said, "You two are not, you've got to do something over the summer holidays. There's no way you're driving as man." So she found a little advert for a club in Walkden, in a very small little town just outside Salford, and they were doing like taster classes. So we went along to them, and cut a long story short, I went to the taster class. There was something about that, the coach and the experience, that they actually, for once in your lifetime, they treated you normal with a little bit of respect. And it's that first impression, that's really what kept me involved in judo for well over 40 years. Wow. So just by chance.
Yeah.
It was just by chance. And it just seemed to be the right thing for me to do, to channel all sort of the frustration and aggression and disruptiveness. It just allowed me to channel it into one direction, and I became pretty good. I was never pretty good straight away. I've always had to work really hard for everything I've got, but it just seemed to fit with me. The discipline, the different language, the respect, lots of older guys teaching the younger. The whole thing just felt right for me, and I just felt very much at home in that environment.
Yeah. And was it something that, because I've read a little bit of your story, obviously, and you were saying that what I was reading was you used to cycle for like an hour and a bit every day to get to training.
Yeah, that's a little bit like the discussion we just had with you. And academically, they never really put, even though I have a degree now, I went to university in Edinburgh, did all that because I wanted to do that. It wasn't really sort of qualifications. We had GCSEs, and it really, really struggled for that. And when I was 16, I said to Mum and Dad, I want to go. I saw Neil Adams. Your dad don't know who Neil Adams is. I saw Neil Adams fight in the 1980 Olympics, and I turned around to my dad and said, "I'm going to go to the Olympics." And he went, "Okay, what are you going to do about it?" I said, "Well, I'm going to train full time." So that's what happened. And one of the regional coaches, or the regional coach, he was a sports teacher in this sports college, and he said, "Well, just come and live with me 3 or 4, 5, live with me and my wife 3 or 4 times a week and stay over and train." And that's how it all started. So initially, I started to cycle every day, and he just said, "This is crazy. Why don't you there's a spare bedroom, just stay with us, and just stay, and it will help on the journey and help on the cycling." But at least a year, I travelled at least up to an hour on a bike every day cycling.
I mean, great exercise and a great warm up for before you hit the mat.
Well, Yeah, it was either that because it was two buses into Manchester from. So one bus into Manchester and then one bus from Manchester to Stretford because it was just outside Manchester. So and it took like an hour and a half, but I could cycle it in less than an hour. So that was the choice. On a good day, I would go on the bike, and then on a bad day in the winter, then I would go on the bike, and then eventually he basically took me under the wing, and that's how it started. And I was training full time judo at 16 years old. But luckily, a little bit like you, my mum and dad felt, well, he isn't, he's not going to amount to anything because the options were going into factories or working down the pit or working in industry. And basically, mum and dad said, well, they had that life, and they said, we didn't really want it for me, really. And if that's what my dream or my ambition was, they would financially they couldn't support me, but emotionally they said, just go for it.
Yeah. And you know what? I think that's something that I really resonate with. Like you might not have, especially coming from, because we come from very similar backgrounds, like you might not have all the money in the world, but actually like your love and support of people can propel you further than.
Well, it's key, isn't it? At the end of the day, they could have quite easily said, no, you're going out, like most of my mates, if they would have said, you're joking, you're going down the pit or you need to bring money in, you know what I mean? But at least my mum and dad said no. And my mum said they were always worried at first, like what I was going to do. They were always worried. And my dad always said, well, don't worry, he'll work it out. He'll do good in the end, you know what I mean? Yeah. So they had that belief and that confidence in me. And I think they could see the commitment. I didn't, it wasn't, I started at 9 and then when I was 16, I was training full time, but I was fighting in local events and national events and they could see the commitment. So they knew it was already there.
Yeah.
It wasn't just an overnight, fly-by-night, pie in the sky idea. They knew I would put the work in to get to where I needed to be.
Mm-hmm. So from seeing this Olympic medalist win, how long was it between you watching someone step on that mat and then you stepping
4
out?
years.
4 years?
I know, yeah. 16, I was in at 19, yeah. 4 years later, I was selected, one of the youngest ever to be selected for Olympic Games in the sport of judo, and the first ever Northerner as well, which is,
my God, that's amazing.
First ever Northerner, because they're all London based before that.
Yeah, because they trained at Crystal Palace or something. They used to.
Yeah, we used to train that all the time. Or you had to be from two of the main clubs in London, which were the Budokai and the Renshaden clubs. And in the 60s, it was just all stitched up. So eventually, but I was the first player from the Northwest to go to the Olympic Games. It was just crazy.
And what was that like? As like just this northern lad?
You don't. As you get older, you look at it, but you have to be a little bit cocky and selfish. You have to be that type of person. And to me, it was like, well, I'm going. That's it. You know what I mean? But I wasn't going to go to make up the numbers. I was going for a medal. You know what I mean? Even at 19, and all my coaches and the national coach said, well, he's a bit young. But I embarrassed them that much. I kept beating the person that they pre-selected. Do you know what I mean? And they basically said in the end, wound them down. They said, right, okay, we'll select him for a senior European. My first ever, I was still a junior actually. So they said, we'll select him for the first senior championships, thinking I'd go out first fight. And basically said, if he gets 5th place and above, he's guaranteed to go to the Olympics. But they obviously thought, I'm not going to win the first fight. Anyhow, I lost for a bronze and got a 5th place. And that's why I went to the Olympics.
Amazing. That's just amazing. And how did it feel to, funnily enough, I've never spoken to an Olympian before.
No.
What was it like, the atmosphere, the adrenaline, the rush? Because you must have to keep it all.
You do, controlled and
yes.
Captured, I'd use the word. It only really hit me is when we walked out in the opening ceremony. That's when I thought, wow, that's when I had a pinnacle moment. That I can feel it now. It's happening now.
Yeah.
The hairs and it was just unbelievable. I thought, whoa, this is it. You know what I mean? It's actually it's only till you walk behind the flag in the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games. That's when you're classed as an Olympian. So after that moment, you've been selected, but once you walk behind the flag, that's officially when when you become an Olympian, and that's when it actually, went, whoa, it's actually real. You know what I mean?
And to stand on that podium with a medal is only one of the youngest judo players in British history, but the first Northerner.
I know. It was strange because it was almost, even on the day, I was probably the most relaxed person in the world, but I'd done all the work. I mean, you just don't get to that level without putting the work in. So all the work was done. So it was a matter of me just going, just going out and enjoying myself. And I always used to have this thing, well, come on, I can't control the controllables, so just go out and enjoy it for me and be relaxed and enjoy it. And that's the attitude I had all the way along. And I was talking to, we had a security guy, a police officer, and an LA police officer who was doing all the security. And I was chatting to him about his son going to college and university. And he said, Neil, I can't believe we're having conversations when you're just about to go fight for a medal. He said, why are you so relaxed? I said, because at the end of the day, there's nothing I can do about that. I can't do anything about my opponent. I've just got to go out and fight the best I possibly can. I lost against the Japanese fighter who won it in the end. And then for the bronze medal remember when I said I came 5th in the Europeans? Yeah. The guy who came 2nd in that Europeans was for the bronze medal fight. And he was one of my heroes. He was an Italian player called Mariani. It's a legend. And that was the person I needed to beat for the bronze medal. And the coach I'd already said, well, 5th place isn't bad for the first day, but there's no way I was taking 5th place, because it's like once you get those up, you've got to take those opportunities, and we don't, we're not privileged enough to get that opportunity again. It might never come again. So you just got to take it by the bull of, take the bull by its horns and just take the opportunity and make the best of it there and then.
Yeah. And having won your medal, flying home, how did you feel flying home? Because I'm trying to think, there must have been this sense of like almost like a come down of like, oh my God, like,
yeah, you're in this massive bubble, and LA was a party from day one. It was like, even the opening ceremony, it was all the Americans did really, really good, and we were like walking around like superstars. So we were kept in this bubble of amazement for like 4 weeks. But in all fairness, I wanted to get home because I missed my grandma's cooking. you just want to get home, When you've been away that long and you've done what you needed to, you want to reconnect with your own folk. You know what I mean? You want to go and see my grandma. My grandma was brilliant. She looked at the medal and she just went, "Oh, that's great. How was the food? You're all right." And that's all she was into. I thought, that's brilliant. I'm home now because Nan's gonna make cheese on toast for me, and that was it.
I always love going home because I don't get to go to Scotland very often, and maybe like 2-3 times a year. And whenever I go home, I find it like a really like grounding experience, because I can do things like, so earlier this year, I curated the public art trail at Wembley Stadium. And I sent my family the photos, and there was like a big press shoot about it. And I was like, oh, I've done this thing. And they were like, all right, okay, cool. When you home next?
Yeah, I think we can't allow ourselves to go, even, being an artist in the Olympics. It's insane. But we've got that sort of safe. We don't allow it to go, you know what I mean? It's always under control.
You can.
Because it's just, I know, because it can go, not because it can go so pear-shaped. We just know the alternative. And I just think it keeps us that balance, is not to get too above your station.
Yeah.
Because, it is amazing. It's like, but you've just got to, you've got to keep a lid on it.
Yeah, you take it in your stride, and like that's it, head down, crack on, like what we were saying before.
Yeah, and our parents won't know. They're not bothered. They're not. They don't know. They just haven't experienced it. So it's how do you keep a conversation, and just try and explain to them what you've done. And to this day, my mum and dad are, they're very northern, you know what I mean? Oh, that's all right. And they don't quite get it. And it's just difficult to explain. It's a different language, isn't it? Sometimes.
Okay, so from Olympic medalist, Olympic champion to artist.
Yeah.
What was the switch? What happened? What made you think?
Well, it was a tragedy. I lost my older brother, who was my absolute hero. You know what I mean? He was amazing in very, very tragic circumstances. And I was just, really struggling with it, because long story short is he was involved in an accident, or it was crazy. Went into a coma, and virtually, I had to turn him off the machine. And it was like, and I was just going, and I was just, this incident went to court and everything else. It was just a nightmare of a situation to deal with. And I was the only one who could deal with it, because my mum and dad couldn't deal with it, because my mum said, "I've not seen him." She just wanted to have this vision of him. But I went through everything else. So that has an effect, eventually when you're dealing with it, you're in it, but eventually it starts having an effect on you. And I was really kind of not losing it, but I was just not thinking right. And luckily somebody said at the time, I said, "What else were you into at school?" And because as a dyslexic, I was very drawn to sports and art, creative, the creative space. And they said, right, okay. And that's when they got me my first canvas and my first easel and my first paints. And the first piece I did, one of my heroes is Jackson Pollock, and I did a very Jackson Pollock drip painting of lots of reds, lots of anger, and it just seemed to work. It just seemed to connect, because art can be a very good therapy tool, you know what I mean, for trauma, and which it was trauma, no question about it. But my older brother would be so proud of me, because it's that that incident, really life-changing incident, has now opened up into a career now where we're traveling all over the world, and now the artworks here, there, and everywhere. He would be very, very pleased and very, very proud that from that difficult situation, I've managed to turn it around and to go on to this journey that I'm on currently on that.
Yeah. And from your initial painting, so you said that Jackson Pollock was one of your favorite artists. How did you grow up visiting art galleries? Was it something you were introduced to from a young age? Do you always remember being quite?
Yeah, it was, because we travel. We travel as Olympian and preparing for that. We traveled everywhere in the world, and in all fairness, every gallery is free, and I'm a big supporter of free galleries.
Yeah,
because I could go on the rest days. All my roommates, they'd all be in. We do a month in Japan, they have a rest day, and they just lie in bed and do nothing. I said, well, you can't be in Paris. You can't be without going to the, without seeing Paris or seeing Japan or seeing Tokyo. And what I tended to do was, I thought, well, what I'll do is I need something totally separate from the sport. I need a different environment. And that's when I started to go around galleries and exhibitions and look at artworks in the Louvre. And I was the only one doing it, because I couldn't get anybody to come along with me to do it, really. So that's how it all started, going around to galleries and looking at galleries and opening yourselves to different types of artists and different types of work.
And what was the drive to do that? Just to get out and see things and not?
Yeah, because it's an opportunity. We're not privileged. We're not keep going on about being privileged, but we're not. We're never going to get these opportunities again, are you? It's about going there. And some of the best cities in the world have the best. Some of the best galleries in the world, don't they? And 99% of the time, they can be free. You know what I mean? Or at very little cost. So that's it was no brainer. It made sense to me. That's where I needed to go to.
And did you used to read about artists as well when you sort of moved into painting? No. What was, because you tell me the story, like, what did you do when you started making your canvases? Was it something that you were instantly like, this is what I want to do?
Yeah, definitely. I was very good at art at school. I mean, that's the only two teachers that I really got on with, was the art teacher of Mr. Bates and Mr. Griffiths, the art teachers, and it worked. I was producing good work, and it's probably one of the strongest qualifications I got at school anyhow. So I was pretty gifted at that. But I always, because being a dyslexic, you tend to sit at the back of the class, and I was always doodling. If you look at my work, there's quite a lot of cityscapes, and I was always doodling New York in the background, and some strange reason. And I was also can remember doodling sort of like Miro, Picasso type things, Cuban, that type of work, that type of pieces of artwork. And then when you see the artists, go, oh, well, I'm not losing it. There is artists out there who do similar types of work. So that's how I got drawn into not reading about artists, but finding more and more and more about artists. And I think the BBC is amazing. First we used to have the culture show, and then now we've got all the iPlayer and the art stuff and the Imagine series. It's just, to watch as a dyslexic, I can't tend to watch more than I tend to read about artists.
So that's exactly what I do as well. And I loved that when I was researching you, there was a couple of videos on you as well, because I enjoy reading, but it's a very slow process for me reading.
It's like pulling teeth. It can be painful, can't it? For me, to read a book's very, very painful. But to watch something, to listen to something, it's just you just got to accept that's how we learn, isn't it? We're very visual.
I also think, though, most of the dyslexic people I know, myself included, like, we've got great imaginations, because you have to create these worlds and create ways that you have to understand things. But I'm really interested to know, because you said that you went to art school and you trained. No, you didn't go to art school.
I've never. How can I go? When could I have gone to art school? There's no way. I'm totally self-trained.
I read you'd gone to art school. St. Martin's, no?
I wish. No, St. Martin's. No, St. Martin's was a sports college. It's not. It was St. Martin's. I wish. Seriously, if I had another life, Seriously,
Interesting.
I would definitely have gone to art school, and sometimes, well, one of my favourite artists is Francis Bacon. He's not self-taught. He is. Sorry, he's self-taught. So he's self-taught. He's self-taught, but no. And I read and listen. Not read. I listen a lot. That a lot of artists say that sometimes if you do go to art school, they can take the rough edges off you a little bit. Well, and so a little bit feels, oh, that'd be an amazing environment to go to. But other parts of me go, well, that's them doing all right as it is. You know what I mean? As a self-trained artist, so I've never been to art school.
Oh my gosh, I had read you. Well, that's unbelievable because I had read that you'd got a
Is
degree.
that better? That better?
No, not at all. No, not at all. Like I was interesting anyway to see how you found the systems of like rules and things. But
Well, I would have fought against them. I'd have been the chasing them, and I would have completely turned against them. And I think most artists do turn against the system.
yeah.
They look at it. Luckily, I didn't have to do that.
So how do you find it then? Because judo is a very like you have to be very sort of respect. You have it's based on respect. It's based on sort of reacting to someone else's moves on the mat. Do you find that in your art practice that
Yeah,
you
it's very
are
free.
very reactive?
Yeah, it's very free, and I paint on the floor. I
Oh,
don't. Yeah, paint on the floor. So the big canvases are all done on everything's done on the floor. So there's lots of that physical movements. I do lots of painting with my hands, and so it's very physical painting, but it's very much more like a movement, and it's more of a meditation, and it's very similar. It's very similar to martial art, and lots of martial arts. There is an artistic side of a martial art. You look at all the samurai warriors; they could paint and calligraphy. They could do all the art side of it as well. So there's a massive connection between being a martial artist and an artist.
yeah, I suppose, and movement and rhythm and timing.
Yeah,
It all
observation as well, seeing something and capturing it, and seeing something and working with it, and not having, because I'm as a judo player, I was very free flowing. Even my coach said, "I don't know what you're going to do." You know what I mean? I was very much reactionary, and I think that's my artwork is very, that in that way, really. I mean, I do sketch. I sketch quite a lot, and then from the sketch, put the sketch to one side, and then look at the blank piece of canvas, and then the work comes out. It just comes out really
yeah.
natural. It's fantastic. I'm meant to be an artist.
Yeah. And do you feel this sort of freeness when you
Yeah,
create?
it's phenomenal. One of my biggest paintings. It was in a judo club in Norway where we were 7.5 years, and I did a Jackson Pollock painting on this 6 foot, roughly about 2 meters by 6 meters boards, huge things. And when I was actually throwing the paint into the air, I could see the movement of the paint. It's almost like being in the zone as an athlete. It's the same. It's the same feeling.
Yeah.
Situation.
That's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
I
So
literally could see the paint. Literally could see the paint moving, and it was like slow motion. And people say it's like being a cat. Everything just goes so slow and so quiet, and it's just like being in the zone, stepping in front of your opponent. My opponent now is a canvas, and doing the piece of work, and that's how it feels. It's the same connection.
oh, I love that. And I love that analogy of just it's just you and the canvas are in this
Yeah,
thing together. I think it's fab.
scary. Looking at a blank canvas is very, very scary, isn't it? And sometimes I do a painting and I'm like, oh, I'm never going to be able to do that again. It's every artist goes through that, don't they? They're never going to be able to replicate that again. And to me, I mean, I have to paint because I think it helps. It does help with the age because this dyslexia. I don't know what you are. There is a certain degree of ADHD as well. And I know when it's time to paint. And luckily, I have the studio here downstairs, so luckily I can just go in and produce a piece of work
And it's
very
yeah.
quick. Well, very quick.
Oh, I think that's so great. And what I didn't know until you answered my open call and you sort of introduced yourself and your background and what you now is your practice as an artist is that you were an artist in residence at the Olympics.
Beijing, yeah, which is phenomenal. And it was better for me because it was a Winter Games, and it felt like
Mm,
representing Great Britain again. But as a
yeah.
judoka, I've done the Summer Games, but actually to be part of the Winter Games was great as well because that means I've totally transitioned
Yeah.
over to a winter sports.
And so tell me a little bit about the artist in residency. Like how did you approach it? How did you hear about it? Do you apply for it? Because I had absolutely no idea, but there's this whole history of
Huge.
the Olympics and
Yeah,
art.
yeah. Yeah. And they used to have a cultural program and running alongside. 84, they had a massive cultural. Joni Mitchell was playing, Bob Dylan was playing. They had this huge cultural event going alongside, and that's always been the case. Even in Greece, they would give medals for poetry. So it's always been in the program. And then the new sort of IGF president will come to be Thomas Bacher. He is now realizes the power of that, and now they've started to reintroduce that again. So there will be every Olympic Games now. There will be a cultural Olympic Games are going alongside, and we were part of an organisation called Olympian Artists, and what we've always wanted to do is come underneath the umbrella of the IOC, and now we're fully in the program. So every Olympic Games will have, and you have to be an Olympian, will be part of this program. So who better to be producing pieces of artwork than actual Olympians themselves? And a lot of the work has to be involve the core values of the Olympics. And getting the Beijing gig is, I was kind of the first person, not because my work is not sporty. Some of it, but the work I did for Beijing was very, very. One was called The Zone, one was called City of Ice, and they were totally abstract contemporary pieces without a whiff of sport anywhere. And I said, look, this is what you need to do. I said, let's not look at what the Olympic artist is producing. Let's not look at the artist, what they're producing. Let's look at them as being the artist, and what they're producing is separate. And if you go down this concept and like pitching it, if you go down this concept and accept my work, then hopefully it will open up into a bigger world, and kids who are not sporty might be able to see a piece of artwork that they have a connection with. So you're opening a whole new thing.
And it's really, really clever, actually, because I was reading about the history of, because there used to be and I'm going to ask you about this. And if you know, please let me know. And if not a problem, because it's taking me down this rabbit hole of art and sport and depicting it. And there's this whole history from ancient Greece, on friezes and sculptures of people like wrestling and chariot races. And I actually Googled what is the earliest depiction of a sporting event or sport in art.
Probably the wrestler.
So sprinting, it was sprinting and wrestling. You're right, I've got the notes here, sprinting and wrestling. And it's in a cave painting.
Wow.
From 15,000 years ago.
I'll never do that. That's fantastic.
Which is crazy. And weirdly, I've got a friend who works at, not weirdly, but like I had never really thought of it in this context. I have a friend that used to work for the auction house Bonhams, and he was his sale in Edinburgh, he was in charge of the sporting art sale. So it was things like fishing, shooting, all sorts of stuff like that.
All the posh stuff.
All the posh boy stuff. He was a bit of a posh boy. He is a bit of a posh boy. I'm sure he won't mind me saying. But it was introduced, and there used to be medals awarded at the Olympic Games for art.
Yeah, poetry.
Silver.
A gold wreath, yeah, exactly the same. So there was no difference at one stage. There was no difference from chariot racing to actually producing a piece of poetry. Everybody was medalled. I don't think they got medals. I think they got sort of gold and silver head dresses. I can't remember, but I think that's what it is. So there's been a massive connection with it. You know what I mean? In terms of, so they're bringing it back in now. So every Olympic Games now will have some form and they're big programs now. Really big programs.
Yeah.
And the first one was a pilot I think the first one was a pilot in the Winter Olympics in Korea, but now it looks like the Paris one. They're gonna put some time and effort and some money into it as well, which is great to do.
And with Beijing, when you were the artist in residence, did you get to go out there, or were you?
No, we couldn't because COVID regulations were insane.
Right.
Okay. We should have been out there, but they didn't. So what they did is they brought in a television company, a film company to come in to do the promo videos, which is fantastic. I mean, as an artist, there's no way I could afford for somebody to come in and pay for that. It was brilliant. That was all paid for.
I think that's the one I watched, or one of the ones.
Yeah, it's fantastic. They came in. It was amazing what they did. That's what they did. And then it's only 3 minutes, but a lot of work goes into a 3-minute video. I'll tell you now, hours, 6, 7 hours. Almost had to kick the guy out in the end. Enough's enough. I've been filmed all my life. This is enough's enough. But it's they're putting a lot of investment, and it's great because it's, to me, there's not every kid sporty, are they? They can somebody might they can make a connection to different type of individuals who are not that quite supported. I think it's a great program that they're doing, and we did the first one, and then I did the first. They did a really challenging interview, basically, because of Korea. They were saying, as an artist, how do you feel about Beijing? Because of all the history of Beijing and the Chinese human rights, and I said, well, the interview they did a lot of prep for it, and it's a big, massive interview to over 500 international reporters all through Zoom. And I'm saying, at the end of it, I said, look, this is not, I am Olympian. This is not about, the Olympians are there to compete. This is not about, it's not political.
It's not politics.
No, it's not politics. They're there to, and I know what it's like to be an Olympian. And, at the end of the day, that's not what it's about. You know what I mean? So luckily that really worked well. And then I was invited to go to Lausanne to speak to those guys there and have a webcam and there. So the whole program has been amazing, really.
Yeah. And is it something that you're able to do again? So, and were your pieces actually taken out? So if you couldn't go out, were your pieces on display?
They were specially photographed, and then they would put on a sort of virtual exhibition. And then there was some form of presence in there, but they kept that one quiet, so I'm not quite sure what that particular one was. So it was a virtual exhibition. But in all fairness, I thought, well, there's more, it's a good idea, because more people can see it virtually than they can actually see it physically. So
exactly.
I think they're going to continue with that, because I think they've got a good reach with that. So I think I've just put the proposal in for Paris, and I'll hopefully know at the end of June whether I've been accepted. Ceremony, even though I had a great relationship, I did a lot of work for them. They love my artwork. They said it was fantastic. They absolutely love what I produced, and and it was so quick, so professional. Everything was delivered on time within budget, because that's what we do.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily guarantee that I'll be involved in Paris. So I've got a couple of really good ideas for Paris. They've just got to accept that, and then we'll go through the contractual stage, and we have to sign a disclosure that we can't say anything. And it's a scary process, but it'll be worth doing, because I think there'll be more, as an artist, I'll have more of a presence in Paris. Hopefully I can go to the Olympics, and hopefully we can do work with some workshops and engage the kids, young people even more. So we'll just have to wait. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think it's so exciting that a huge enterprise, really global event like the Olympics sees the value in art as a communication tool, as a tool for expression, as a tool to support what they're trying to do in terms of exercise. And
but they're playing catch up. The International Judo Federation were doing this 3 or 4 years ago. Marius Viz, Marius Viz was doing big sports. We're doing this because they had a big sort of delegation every 2 years at the World Championships. So Marius Viz said, well, that wouldn't be great if we did something. He's been doing it 4, 5, 6 years ago. So Marius Viz has been very much, on key with this. He's president of the International Judo Federation, and that's when I first started. The first gigs were at the World Championships, the first ever exhibition, and that's amazing. Going as a judo player to an exhibition, and your peers are actually going to the exhibition. These guys growing up with your heroes, and it's like you're sat there with 10 pieces of artwork, and you're looking at the reaction, and that's been amazing about it. You do get a lot of criticism. I got a lot of criticism at first. Oh, you're a judo player, you're not just happy being an Olympian. No, I'm an artist. And luckily, when they had the first ever exhibition, Yamashita was an Olympic champion, legends. All these legends I grew up with, who were my heroes, all came to the exhibition, and they was just so positive about it. You know what I mean? I know. So I turned from a judo player to literally in seconds to an artist, because my peers and my heroes were accepting and actually acknowledging and being very, very positive about the work that was on display.
Well, I suppose it goes back to that respect thing, isn't it? And did you have a lot of pushback when you decided to change?
Yeah, because I did, and so because I've always, I've had a career in judo a long, long time, national coach, and worked in Norway, and I just needed something else, and it's not being big-headed. It just this feels right for me. This is what I should have always been. It's strange.
Yeah. So I have a lot of people that listen to this podcast that are they have like an art practice on the side, and they're thinking about starting an art practice. They're not too sure. I've got a lot of young people that actually listen to this. I've had a few people write me to be like, you've inspired me through like your talks with artists to go to art school, and it's amazing to receive messages like that. But what would you say to anyone listening that's sort of like, dabbling.
Yeah, unfortunately, you can't dabble. You've either got to be 2 feet in or 2 feet out. It's not one of those you can dibble dabble in it, and you can. I mean, luckily we're in a position where the artwork, we're okay. You know what I mean? But it'd be very difficult these days to survive as an artist alone on selling your work. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, I've had that. And to me, people kept saying that. Well, it's going to be difficult. The career is going to be difficult, and it's the same things I heard when I was a kid when I said I was going to go to the Olympics. So to me, I'd already done it anyhow.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have prepared. If I could get my chance again, so I would definitely go to art college or to art school and learn as much as you possibly. Before you make that step, learn as much as you possibly can. Look at the artist, do the research, concentrate on your own practice. Don't be scared to make mistakes. But at the end of all that, you still want to jump in, then you're going to be more prepared than anything if you've done the background stuff as well.
Oh, I love that. And what are you up to now? Because Beijing 2020 done, as in you've applied for Paris.
Yeah, we're waiting for Paris to come along. We do quite, I did a really great piece because my dad's got dementia, so he's in the home. So I did a really good piece on trying to capturing what the dementia piece was amazing. It's just 3 different head skulls, fantastic, really. So now I'm painting, and I listened to a really good artist and a web thing about him, and he basically said, stop worrying about making. I'm just producing art. I'm not worried about selling it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Even though I'm just doing the practice and really, really enjoying that stage in our lives. And luckily we've got to that stage in our lives where I don't have to worry about paying the bills. I'm just doing the practice, and I'm in the studio every day. I'm sort of working on my sketchbooks every day, and I'm just waiting for those opportunities and for those moments to come up where I can show my work to a much, much larger audience. And I think that's what I'm working towards now, certainly with the social media and promoting. So lots of promotions, lots of working. It's just, what do artists do all day? So keeping very busy.
Yeah, absolutely. Neil, it's been amazing to speak to you. I've really loved speaking to you. I've really loved researching you. This has been an episode really close to my heart because obviously my dad, and I'm so excited for him to listen to it as well.
No, wishing my best when you speak to him.
Yeah, absolutely.
That name does ring a bell, but it was obviously before. He's a little bit older than me, but it was obviously before my generation.
He's a good bit older than you, I'll say it.
I would be able to just pick up the phone now and speak to somebody who would probably know your dad.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll put you in touch actually, because it would be good for him to sort of like remember those roots, because he is getting on a bit, and it would be nice for him.
Be fine.
Who knows? Where can people find you and connect with you?
Through all the social media, through Facebook, Instagram. I'm all on there. Google my name is great because it just comes up with everything.
Yeah.
Tells you what it is. Or I do have a designated website, which is www.olly, O-L-Y art, all one word, .no. It's a Norwegian company. Click on there and you'll see a little bit more about me. But if you want to know more about the work and what I'm doing, is simply Google, because Google's great because it puts everything in one place.
Yeah.
And that's what.
Well, I'll leave links to everything in the show notes for the podcast. So anyone that's listening now, you can find how to connect with Neil there. Now, I don't know if you've listened to any of my previous podcasts. That's absolutely fine. It is not a requirement. I always end with one question. It's the same question for every guest.
Okay.
It's a bit of a mean one, and you can take this in any way, big or small, personal, global. But my question is, why is art important?
Well, that's a big question, isn't it? It's important because to me it's real, and it's part as artists, we've got lots of things going on in the world, great things and bad things, and artists have that ability to connect with that and produce artworks that hopefully connect with a wider audience. And it's, to me, being in the creative space and being creative is one way of getting the messages across to everybody.
I love that. That's a beautiful response. Well, thank you so much.
Brilliant. Thank you for that.
Thank you. And there you have it, another episode of Jo's Art History podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, please make sure to like, rate and subscribe. It does really help in letting other people find us. You can listen to Jo's Art History podcast on any streaming platform, and you can also watch it in a video format on YouTube. If you would like to support the podcast in any way, I have now released an Amazon wish list, which you can also find in the show notes below. This will allow you to donate in part or purchase in full an art historical text that is of interest to me and that will help in research towards future episodes. And it would be really wonderful if you've listened to quite a lot of these, if you could buy that as a way of marking patronage towards the podcast, that would be brilliant. If you would like to get in touch, please do. It's always lovely to hear from people. You can email me, joesarthistory@gmail.com, or you can get in touch with me via Instagram, which is @joesarthistory, or you can search for my name, Jo McLaughlin, via Instagram, and you will find me there. That's all we have from the podcast this week. Thank you so much for listening. Once again, I'll remind you to keep learning and remember, art is for all. Bye.